Hello, everyone. So as promised, here is our video on DNA structure. Remember, it is important to both watch and listen. All right. So we are completely switching gears away from photosynthesis and respiration, and we're going to be spending a decent amount of time. A decent amount of time is maybe even till early April on DNA and genetics. So DNA is the genetic material, and it is located in the nucleus of all eukaryotic cells. So when we were learning the organelles, excuse me, we said that the nucleus controls the cell. It is not really the nucleus that controls the cell. It is the DNA. And in this unit, we're going to learn what DNA does to control the cell. And it is a nucleic acid. So in the beginning of the year, we were learning about the types of molecules. We had proteins, we have lipids, we had carbohydrates, and then we briefly mentioned a fourth type, which is nucleic acids, and that makes up your genetic material. So this entire unit is going to be about what DNA does to control cells. However, before we learn about what it does, we need to know what it looks like. So all nucleic acids are composed of what is called a nucleotide. All right. And this is what a nucleotide looks like. Okay. So a nucleotide has one phosphate group. Okay. It has a sugar, and the sugar is a specific sugar. That sugar's name is deoxyribose. And then it has a nitrogen base. And the nitrogen base is the part of the molecule that can vary. And it can have, there are 4 different bases. They're represented with the letters A, T, G, and C. We'll talk more about them on Monday. But A is adenine, which is the one that's here. T is thymine. C is cytosine. You don't need to know these words right now. And G is guanine. But it is important that you know that DNA is composed of nucleotides. And I will type that word so you guys can see how to spell it, because you should write it down. So let me insert... Sorry, guys, text box. So this here, one of these that has a phosphate sugar and one of the nitrogen bases is called a nucleotide. My NP is sticking. All right. So when you form a DNA molecule, well, there's the word nucleotide anyway. So a DNA molecule is composed of 2 strands of DNA that are held together by hydrogen bonds between the nitrogen bases. So if we take a look at this, I'm going to draw on it a little bit. So this here, where is my drawing? This here is one strand of DNA. Okay, and it has 3 nucleotides. Every phosphate, sugar, and base, okay, is a nucleotide. And to be a DNA strand, attached on the other side has to be another strand, okay, and which also has 3 nucleotides. But it's important to remember, okay, or know that the 2 strands are held together by hydrogen bonds between the nitrogen bases. The other thing it's important to realize is that if you're looking at the side of a DNA molecule, the phosphate and sugar repeat over and over again. So DNA is said, as a result, to have a phosphate sugar backbone. And that is one of your true or false questions. So because the phosphate and sugar, they're the same, they're not different like in the 4 nitrogen bases. Okay, because the phosphate and the sugar repeat over and over again, okay, DNA molecules have a phosphate sugar backbone on each strand. And again, on Monday, we're going to practice this with some manipulatives or some pieces to play with, so it will make more sense. So if you take a look at the pairing, so once again, we have our phosphate sugar backbone, which it says right here. And then each strand has a phosphate sugar backbone, and the nitrogen bases are in the middle. So this nitrogen base A, which stands for adenine, always pairs with T. So when you're joining 2 strands together and you're making what they call a complementary strand, A must always pair with T, and G must always pair with C. So if you see at this bottom one, since there's a T here, no matter what, when you're joining it to the other strand, it has to join with an A. Okay, and we're going to see that the order of these bases, the A, T, G's, and C's, the order on the strand is very important. So often you'll be asked to make a complementary strand of DNA. All right, so I'm going to get this out of presentation mode for a second. And so if this is one strand and it's just giving the nitrogen bases, what you need to remember if you're asked to give the complementary strand is that A always pairs with T. So here would be an A, here would be an A, there would be a T, then we would have a C. And I messed up by clicking on the next slide. This is a G. I'm sorry, that's wrong. This is a T. Remember, A always pairs with T. I was looking forward already. G, T, there's a T there, so this would be A. So whenever there's a T, you would add an A. Here there's a G, so you would add a C. Here there's another G, so you would add a C. And then 2 more C's at the end, right here. So this would be a G. All right. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is that the DNA does not stay in this ladder form. When the DNA molecule is fully formed, and this is probably a term that you've heard, it twists to form a double helix. And that was figured out in the 1950s-ish. So the final structure of a DNA strand is called a double helix. And then for our last slide, when we represent DNA, the part that repeats is always often represented as like a single line. So this like blue and light blue is the phosphate sugar backbone. And then each of the different colors represents a letter. So for example, notice that green is always pairing with red. So if green was A, then the red would have to be T, because A always has to pair with T. Similarly, if the purple was C, right? So here's a purple one. The one that it paired with would make the yellow be G. But for now, I'm going to just summarize. Sort of the main things that you want to be aware of is that DNA is composed of nucleotides, and nucleotides have 3 parts: a phosphate, a sugar named deoxyribose, and a nitrogen base. And it's the nitrogen base that can vary. When they form DNA strands, there are 2 strands, each consisting of nucleotides, and the 2 strands attach together by hydrogen bonding between the nitrogen bases. And again, when we do this together in class, it will make more sense. Last but not least, when you're pairing nucleotides together from one strand to another, A always has to pair with T, and G always has to pair with C. So now, and again on Monday, we're going to be using some cutouts to sort of work this out in our brains. But for now, all that's left for homework is for you to do the true or false. Remember, there's only one that's true. For all the ones that are false, you need to fix the statement and make it true. And I will see you guys on Monday.